Tinja here. Today we are going to be interviewing Bloom Consulting. So Bryan and I make up the special care planning team for Mass Mutual Greater Houston, and we're so excited to be able to continue to bring you resources that really drive value for you guys as you go through the life care planning process. And since transition planning is such a big component, I'm genuinely excited to introduce Dr. James Williams. A very hot topic that's always on the top of mind for conversations when we talk about planning is transition planning. And so I'm going to have him introduce himself and what they do. So welcome, Dr. James Williams.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, like you said, transition is a huge topic, as it should be, for students, coming out. And I think, a lot of parents, they, especially if they get with you guys earlier than later, which hopefully they do, they're very focused, of course, on early intervention, as they should be. They're very focused on, getting through school, as they should be. But then I think the inevitable thing happens that they come to transition. And what I've heard from most families is that happens a lot faster than they realize. They're like, okay, they were 12 one day and the next day they're 18 and they're graduating. So yeah, my name, as she said, is Dr. James Williams. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and National Pre-ETS Director for Bloom Consulting. We have offices, physical offices in Houston and Austin. Our headquarters is in Round Rock, just by the Dell campus north of Austin. And but we provide services across the state of Texas, and I'll talk a little bit more about those later, and then across the state of Nevada as well. Yeah, it's a little bit about us. Our main focus, and I'm sure we'll get into the details later, but our main focus as a company is we provide vocational evaluations, training, and placement services for individuals with disabilities. And those are funded primarily through two different ways. One, through the Texas Workforce Commission's VR Services Division, or if either the person isn't eligible, or let's say it's a service that they don't cover, also private pay as well in those cases.
That's awesome.
So can you elaborate, Dr. Williams, a little bit more on the services, a little bit? What would that look like for a family, say 17 and a half, 18 years old, has a child, want to kind of come in and see what Bloom Consulting is all about?
Sure. So it would kind of depend on how they find us, but let's say, they just found us on their own. So they weren't referred to us by TWC or even by you guys. They just found us, let's say, on our website or something. A lot of times what I recommend people do is they contact our staff, and they just kind of give us a little quick rundown of kind of where their individual is at. So how old are they, their disability, where they're at, functioning level, what are their goals, if they have goals at this point of what they want to do, whether that's go to work, go to college, I don't know, live independently, maybe a combination of all three. And so starting there, then my staff can make some recommendations in terms of services. But kind of I'll break down the three big areas. So the first part is placement. So most of these services happen either in near our office in Houston, or they happen in Austin. But we actually place people with disabilities in competitive and integrated employment in the community. So we're placing them based on their preferences and what kind of jobs they want to get based on where they're at in their life. That service, the vast majority of folks under that service are getting funded through Texas Workforce Commission VR services, as they should, because that is something that they pay for, and that's kind of their quote unquote landmark service that they do. So that's one piece of it. The second component is the evaluation piece. So my colleague in particular, I used to do them, but I just don't have time with my other responsibilities. But my colleague, Bruce Bloom, does vocational evaluations across the country. Texas, of course, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, you name it, but also in California, Nevada, Connecticut, New York, a couple other places. And basically, those vocational evaluations and assessments are comprehensive evaluations, a battery of assessments designed around answering the big question, which is, what is this student going to do? What should their goals be? What are their goals? Do their goals currently that they have match up with what the assessment and the results are saying they can do and should be doing? And really provides a plan for, should they go to college? Should they get a job first? Should they go to college and then get a job? Should they, can they and should they live independently? And based on their current functioning, are they on a trajectory to do that? Same with college. Are they on a trajectory to get to and complete college, or get to and complete employment and maintain employment? So that's a big part of it as well. That service is funded a lot of different ways. TWC does fund that service, but I would say the majority of those folks that we serve are either funded through their school district through a vocational IEE request with the school district, or they're funded through the parents privately paying for an assessment. So, so that's a second area that we do. And I will tell you, with that service, there is about a 3-month wait list right now. We are just absolutely slammed with those assessments across the country. So we even hired another full-time staff member, and we're still at a 3-month wait list because we just have so many. So as you can imagine, that's a really popular service, especially for that 17-year-old, 18-year-old, even 16-year-old individual. The third piece is the piece that really is my baby and what I love the most, and that is our training programs. So we have a lot of different training programs. Really, in my opinion, you can kind of break them down into 3 little chunks themselves. One being vocational training. So Texas Workforce Commission, for the most part, they fund that. We have a couple of families that choose to private pay, but we do pre-employment transition skills. So we actually train individuals 14 to 22, mostly through state funding, but can be done privately, on everything you would need to know to get and keep a job or get and go to college. So getting, admitted into college, getting into a job, interviewing skills, developing a resume, soft skills, social skills, you name it, all of that's covered in those courses. So that's our Pre-ETS program. That's one of the kind of 3 pieces of our training. Second piece of our training, and this is actually a program that's offered exclusively in Houston, so this would be one for your families to definitely know about, is called Mission Life. It's a program specifically designed for individuals that are not college bound. They're individuals that are career bound, coming maybe out of an 18+ program or out of their K-12 setting, and they want a job, they want to work, but they're just not quite there. They need a bridge between where they are now, where they're done with the school, to where they want to be, which is employed in that job and living independently. So that's Mission Life. That's offered at our Houston location exclusively, and that's a program designed for that group. That program right now is only private pay funded, but we are in the very long and arduous process of becoming an HCS provider for that program. So who knows when that will happen? We started that process a year ago, and we still don't have our contract. They blame COVID. I have other reasons in my mind, but I think they just are really slow. But anyways, eventually that'll happen. And then the third piece of our training is really new and something your family should definitely know about, and that is our college support program. So it's not even out yet. We're rolling it out in the fall. We needed a lot of prep time to get it going, but in the fall, we're at the same time we're applying for VR funding in Nevada, which we've received, but Texas, we're also going through that process. It'll be private pay as well, and so basically individuals with disabilities that could go to college, have the academic skills, but who, the disability accommodations at that disability office just aren't enough. It's just not, accommodations aren't enough. They need a little more extensive tutoring and mentoring and training and support to really get through college, whether that's graduate school or undergrad or even a 2-year degree. So that program's Campus Connections, and that'll be rolling out in the fall. And you can get lots of information on that on our website. But yeah, that's kind of our 3 areas, and then our 3 training areas as well.
So a lot to unpack. So I'm trying to take notes and ask. So let's go back to the beginning with when it comes to placing with employers. So say a family brings a child through, let's just say at 14, they're getting their coaching, the resume skills, interview skills. Fast forward 18, what's usually the turnaround time from, hey, we think you're employable at these different employers, and the onboarding process with those employers? Is it a year turnaround time? Is it 6 months? Is it fairly quick? What should we expect from a planning process to say, hey,
sure,
from completion of training to the employment, it takes about X amount of months?
Yeah, the placement process varies for everyone. So I'll say that before I give you our kind of what our average is. But so it does vary. We have had individuals that we are working with for literally a year or 2 years. That is not the norm. The norm is if a person, whether it's TWC or privately funded, if a person has a career goal, we've accepted them and believe we can help them achieve that goal. Usually it's about 3 months is on average. On average, within 3 months, and I tell people to give you an idea of the certainty of that, our placement rate as a provider is about 94%. So what that means is within 3 months of a client starting with us, 94% of our customers are successfully placed in competitive integrated employment, which is a huge thing. If you are in our field, or work with any other providers that are out there, their placement rates are generally in the 20 to 40% range. That's actually the norm nationally of people with disabilities. It's a really awful statistic. So we're very good at what we do. And generally we place pretty fast. So I say 3 months, but honestly, particularly in the economy we're in right now, a lot of people say, well, the job market's bad. Well, not really. Yes and no. It's bad for people. It's bad for white collar jobs. It's bad for higher level jobs, mid and high level jobs. Totally, it is not great. But for lower level jobs, it's booming because there is such a demand for retail, food service, grocery, gas, like all those basic, things that our economy and our country are built on, that need is great. So right now we're placing people in sometimes days, not even weeks or months, but days. So, and it's just because the demand for good employees right now at those entry level jobs are just tremendous. But normally I'd say, let's pretend it's not right now. Let's just pretend it's an average economy. We've been around for about 12 years. In the average year with just a pretty stable standard economy, no COVID, of course, we're generally, like I said, 94% in 3 months, they're placed in a job.
Okay. And so when say they get placed, they're having a good time at their job, what's the interaction, I guess, with you guys after the placement? Is there monthly check-ins, just seeing how things are going? What's that process like?
Sure. So that depends. It's one of two things. So it depends on the funding source. If it's Texas Workforce Commission, they actually have a process we have to follow. So once we place them in a job, at about 3 months, and we achieve, let's say it's give or take about 3 months, we achieve what's called considered placement. It's one of their benchmarks. Usually at that point, all the way to the end, which is considered closure, there's several months of exactly what you said, check-ins. And generally what that looks like is it usually starts about once to twice a week check-in, and it's on site, it's physical, right? And again, I'm taking COVID aside, just what our normal situation is. And so, we're checking in once or twice a week in person. And so after placement, then that's fading over time. And so over time, towards the end of that closure period, which is about, 9 months from the start to the finish, usually maybe 6 to 9, depends on the individual. Then we're doing a lot less frequent check-ins. So then it really is, once a week, probably in a phone call or a text. And then it may be once a month in a phone call or a text, or once every 2 weeks. And so we really fade that support out until they achieve what VR considers as closure. And that's when the services actually, per VR, have to basically stop. And the reason being is that they want us to stop because they want to know that this individual can maintain the placement without us, which is what we want to know too. Now, if it's a private customer, we can really continue that support for a long time. So we've had individuals that we've placed privately who we're doing check-ins literally a year or two down the line. But again, it's very minimal at that point. It's, hey, if there's an issue with the job, call us. We're here, and we'll push in support as fast as we can if you need it. If you don't, though, you know how to reach us. You do your thing, we'll do ours, and we're here for you. And that's actually normally what I'd say the majority of our clients, that's kind of the mode of support they're getting towards the end of that closure period, or towards the end of that time, even if it's TWC funded, just because they've been able, what we tell our staff is, and our clients, is if you can maintain a job for 3 months, chances are you're going to keep it for a lot longer. But I don't want to say indefinitely, nothing's indefinite, but generally long past the time we work with you. So a lot of it for us is we push in a ton of support right at closure, or excuse me, right at placement. And so, when we're first placing them, we're having a job coach on site, usually every shift. And even if not for the whole shift, most of the shift, for especially those first 3 to 4 crucial weeks. And then once we see, hey, they've got this, they've got a support, they've got a good manager, they know who to go to if there's a problem, then we start, stepping back our intensity and our frequency of support.
Okay. And some families that we've interacted with in the past, mom and dad have goals for the child to be gainfully employed, have a sense of community with friends at a job. The child that we're talking about, though, sometimes, or the minor, might not be as motivated to be employed. Do you work with families like that and help the individual get motivated, or is it we want driven, motivated individuals, make this process a lot faster, a lot more streamlined?
That's actually a great question, because there are limitations on what we can do, but there's also some ways to push things to see if we can get them there. So a great way to work with a family like that, honestly, is to do a vocational evaluation. And the reason why is it's going to tell the family, are their expectations reasonable? And by the family, I mean not just the parents. Are the parents' expectations reasonable? Meaning, if the parent says, oh, they're going to college, can they really go to college? Do they have the academic skills and the executive function skills to actually do that and be successful? So it answers that question to the family. Same with work. I want my son to work 40 hours a week. Great. Well, you know what? Our assessment can tell you, is that physically possible? Does he have the stamina? Does he have the ability to do that? So it can be really helpful for the family. Vice versa. It can be really helpful for the individual. If that individual has really high goals, it can tell them if they're reasonable or not, just as much. If those individuals aren't very motivated and don't have a lot of goals, it can tell them, well, hey, here's what you're capable of. Now, yeah, and you hit on a key point. It's up to the individual to choose whether or not they're going to put in that motivation. And I tell people, college, yes, a job even more so. You cannot make someone go to work and do a good job who doesn't want to be at work. You just can't do it. There's nothing you can do. There's no amount of support, money, funds, resources you can use to make someone be on a job they don't want to be at. Because what are they going to do? They're just not going to show up. They're going to be late and they're going to get fired. And trust me, that's, even with all the vetting we do before we take a customer, that still happens to us on occasion too, just because and again, it's not an us issue. It's not a parent issue. It's an individual issue. So there is limitations. A vocational evaluation can give you, though, some data and facts for that individual with the disability and the parents to make a good informed decision. So I think that's a great standpoint. The other thing that I tell families is it's okay to motivate an individual in the beginning with some extrinsic rewards. So they're not bribes. They're extrinsic rewards. So for example, we've had parents say, you get XYZ grades in your college classes, you get a B, you get this, you get an A, you get this, you get a C, you get this, you get a D, we got problems. Like they'll go through and have that conversation. And that's totally fine. Same with work. I've had families say, that they, I've had families set up a token economy and say, if you're 5 minutes early, so that, they have apps that you can like track someone's phone. So the parents have set up where, hey, if I see that you got to, I'm just going to pick a store, it's off the top of my head, Walmart. Hey, we saw that you got to Walmart 5 minutes before your shift. If you do that every day for the next X number of weeks, you get this bonus. The parents will pay them a bonus. And you can get really creative with it. And so what I've also seen sometimes is it's also just sometimes a matter of what's motivating an individual. A video game. Oh my God, I've seen students do crazy amazing things for a $25 video game. So it's sometimes too, it's just finding what the motivation is. Now, what I tell families, here's where you have to be worried though. If you have to do that extrinsic reinforcement and you can never fade it, then that's a problem, right? Because then that means that individual isn't going to naturally take on that ability to want to continue. But what we've seen is 80-90% of the time that is the case, where we can motivate them a bunch in the beginning, do a vocational evaluation, get them a goal and a roadmap, work with you guys in terms of the financial piece, then work with the individual, start that process, motivate them a little bit extrinsically up front, and then fade that motivation back and allow the individual to move forward. And most of our clients do. What's interesting about work is, and this is going to surprise you, I'm sure, but it's amazing to us that first paycheck is a turning point because the individual realizes that I did something and I got something for it. Like I earned this money. This isn't mom and dad's money. This isn't Social Security money. This is my money that I worked hard to earn. And it's amazing because 80-90% of our clients, that point, it flips something in their brain. And then it becomes the opposite issue where we're like, look, you're sick. You can't go to work. Look, you might have COVID. You can't go to work, like it's that kind of thing. So it's almost then it's the opposite issue where, our parents are having to tell them you can't work every day or you can't go early. We've had clients that get so excited about work, they like show up 3 hours early to their shift. And we have to say like, you can show up early, but you got to sit in the parking lot. You can't go clock in 3 hours early, so-and-so or place doesn't like that. So yeah, I think that's a lot of it is it's assessment and evaluation up front to give guidance and a roadmap. And then sometimes it's some nudging and motivation. That said, for that, I said 80-90, right? So that 10 to 20% of students that aren't going to be motivated, unfortunately, that's, I got to be honest, I don't have a good answer for those individuals. And I don't think anybody does because I can't make them go to a job. I can't force them to show up to an interview. I can't stop them from sabotaging a job. We've had a lot of customers who will get a job because their parents want them to, or because we're helping them do it. And then they'll sabotage. They'll not show up, no call, no show, they'll get fired. So that's really hard. And I'll be honest, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. I'm sure this is nothing new for you. But sometimes what we see with those individuals is they just don't have the life circumstances in place to where they have to work and have that mental mindset. And so we've actually advocated to have families. We said, they're like, what do you want me to do? Kick them out? And we're like, yep. What do you want me to do? Take away their phone? Yep. What do you want me to do? Yep. Do that. Because you need to figure out how to motivate them, because we see a lot of individuals. And to be fair, this is not just wealthy families. We see this with middle income and low income families too, where individuals don't have a requirement to work because they know if they don't go to work or they don't show up and they don't have a job, well, mom and dad are still going to give me food at night. They're still going to give me my dinner. They're still going to pay for my electricity and my cell phone. They're still going to keep the lights on. And that can be okay for some and unfortunately, a really big detriment to work for others. So a lot of times, especially with folks on the spectrum, we really encourage parents and families to think about what motivates them. And if some of those easier things don't motivate them, maybe it's the removal of something. It's a nice iPhone 12 Max is not a right. It's a privilege, and we're paying for it. So sorry, it's coming back. We're getting it back. And I've also seen some amazing transformations with students with stuff like that. Internet. Oh my God, I've had students who the parents, limit their internet access, and you would think that they're suffocating them and like putting a pillow over their head. They're not, but it's just, but stuff like that, sometimes it takes a reminder of, well, in life, these things cost real money. And, if your parents are working, you're going to have to work too, and you're going to have to put in your time. But again, that's the minority. The majority of the students, once we get them in there and we have that good assessment to guide the placement, they're in good shape.
Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about the college support program. Is that for any public university here in Texas, or is there only specific ones that, because of geographical locations, that you guys are allowed to help the kiddos? Is there certain programs that you've partnered with already, like maybe VAST or other ones?
So yes, and I will tell you, and actually I'm glad that you brought up VAST, because our program is different. So the programs like VAST or even Lone Star's program, or in Austin, we have ACC, the STEPS program. Our focus is on a different group of students. So our focus is specifically on students that are degree seeking. So they degree or certificate seeking. So they have to be getting a bachelor's, a 2-year degree, or a graduate degree from any school. It can be an online school, and this goes to your other question. It can be an online school, so like a GWU kind of place. It can be an online program if it's just a school with a physical play. Like, let's say they're going to school at a school out of state that has an online program. But they've got to be getting a certificate, an official certificate of some type, whether that's welding, auto mechanic, whatever, plumbing, you name it, a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, or a graduate degree. So that's a big key component. So we tell folks, if the students are looking for a college experience, and they're not really looking for the degree or the certificate program, that's fine. But then we're definitely going to recommend them go to a VAST or go to an ACC STEPS or something like that, because their focus is more on the college experience and it's more on the life skills component, which is great and very needed. That's just not what we're focusing on. We're trying to address that other half of students who maybe don't have an intellectual disability but have high functioning autism or dyslexia or learning disability, and totally can do the rigors of college in terms of academically, but it's all the other pieces they need help with. It's the, hey, I have an issue with my financial aid. What office do I go to? What do I say? Who do I talk to? What are the words that I use? How do I write that email? Hey, I need disability accommodations, or my professor's not giving me my accommodations. How do I go advocate with the professor and or disability services to get what I need? And so ours is focusing on that different group of students. So we really see our program as complementary to, a VAST or STEPS and things like that, just because it's kind of the other half of the spectrum of students. But that said, in terms of locations, we're having conversations with a couple of different schools. I can't share yet because we're still in those initial stages. It's not public yet, but we're working with some schools I can share in the Austin area and some schools in the Houston area to launch in-person support services on those campuses. And when we have more information about that, which I should have probably, I'm guessing later this spring, I'll have some of that and I'll post that on our website for your families to see. But so that we're working on. We already have 4 institutional partners in Nevada that we're working with, 2 in the Reno, Carson City area, 2 in the Las Vegas area that we'll be working with, and that'll also roll out in fall of 2021. So those will all offer in-person services, okay, to start. In addition to that, we'll offer virtual services to students across the country. So if they want support and they're going to some other school that we don't already serve, that's not a problem. We will totally support them and serve them. We will just have to do it virtually. Now, what I'm really excited about, though, is in Texas and Nevada, one of the things we've set up as the program grows is if we have 5 or more students on a campus, we will bring in a in-person full-time staff person to support those students. So for example, even though we're going to start with these couple of schools in Texas and Nevada, if we get calls from families, let's say that we get, a waiting list of 5 students, I'm just going to pick a school, U of H. And we have a waiting list of 5 students that are going to U of H to the main campus. That's awesome. What we will do is we will serve up till we hit that 5. We will serve those students virtually. And as soon as we have those 5 students, I will hire somebody and we'll start in-person services on that campus. And so it's kind of a way we're going to use it to scale it up slowly based on demand and need from families.
Awesome. That is awesome. So just final question. So if a family is very interested, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you guys to start the conversation about what type of service they think is their children need to engage you guys with?
Sure. So I would say probably 1 of 2 ways, whatever works best for families. So they can call us. Now we've got our office in Houston, but I always give people our corporate number because then we can just transfer them. So that number is 512-537-1661. So 512-537-1661. 1661. So that's our corporate office. If they call, they'll be routed to our directory, and they can hit 0 and talk to our frontline admin, and they will basically get some information basics on the family, and then they'll direct them to what programs we have, and they'll actually send them to our service team that can talk about the services more in depth. So that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, of course, nowadays especially, email is great. And so what I would encourage people to do, rather than email me directly, because then I'm just going to send it on to someone, is if they go to our website, Bloom Consulting Co., so BLOOM consultingco.com, they can go to the contact page, and if they do it through there, what'll happen is that'll get routed straight to that same admin person, and then she can then, or he can then direct them to the right person. So I think either of those two avenues work really, really well. There's other ways to reach us too, people. We do have a Twitter, we have a Facebook. You're welcome to message us on there, but I always tell people the fastest way is either that phone number or through our contact form.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. I appreciate your time today. We will definitely get this out to our families as soon as possible. This was a lot of good information. Is there any last things you want to add about Bloom Consulting or anything before we?
Yeah, well, I guess one last thing I would say, well, two, but they kind of come together. So one is people ask all the time, well, why are we different than your typical, provider? And I'll tell you, honestly, it's experience. So my colleague and I, Bruce Bloom, we're both certified rehab counselors. We have graduate degrees in vocational rehab, getting people with disabilities employment. We are the experts in that. We are the experts in evaluating them. We're the experts in placing them. So it's not like just calling up some random person. It's not like even working with the school. I was a former special ed teacher. Special educators are amazing. We're not special educators. We're rehab professionals. And so our focus is not on the school piece. We do work a lot with schools and we love our school partners, but our focus is on specifically disability and employment and how we can do that. And as part of that training, where the college piece comes in. So that's one thing I always tell people that makes us a little bit different than your average folks. The other piece I would say is flexibility. The reason we offer private pay funding and TWC options is because we want to meet families wherever they're at. If there's a family that's not eligible for TWC for whatever reason, or let's say they just can't get a hold of anybody, I know with COVID, it's been really hard. We want to offer private pay because if a student needs support today, we want to offer them a way to start today. Down the line, we can look at HCS, we can look at, can we get TWC to cover the cost? And we totally will, but, and have those conversations. But if a student needs help now, we want to be there for families and support them. And as part of that too, I tell people, we really try to price our services for private pay as competitively as we can. Give you an example, our college program is $1,000 a month. And if you go on our website, that's weekly support meetings in a group, that's on-demand support, that's a scheduled meeting a week, that's a monthly wraparound support meeting. It's a lot of services for $1,000 a month. And the reason we did that is because we wanted it to be accessible to all kinds of families. We wanted people that were in a middle-class situation, people like myself or like my staff. If it was our kids, we wanted to be able to make sure that we could pay for the service if our kids needed it. And so I'd say those are two big things that we tell people is we will always try to work with you. I can proudly say that we've never turned down a family and said, no, we can't help you. We've always either found them another resource, we've directed them to TWC, we've worked with them, we've done payment plans, we've done all kinds of stuff because we don't want that to be a reason a family doesn't get support from us. So those are just big things. And I'll tell you, a lot of that is my staff and I are very passionate about what we do. Most of my staff are former special ed teachers. They're folks with graduate degrees. They're very educated, very experienced, but they're also people and they love working with people with disabilities. We love our families and we want to make sure that, especially in times like now with COVID, we want to make sure that we're a warm presence in their life that's bringing services, but also just support and some listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great stuff at the end. I appreciate it all. Tinja, is there anything you want to add?
No, we echo the same level of passion, and we absolutely haven't turned away a family either. So we're genuinely thankful for you to join us and also help our families.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you guys so much.